So here we are in the business class of Eurowings Discover in the seat configuration of Edelweiss. That's the holiday airline of Swiss. And this plane used to fly for Edelweiss not very long ago.
I'm Chris, and Travel Sync Fly is all about flying and travel with lots of tips and detailed airline and destination reports worldwide. And today we have one more look at Eurowings Discover. Why again? Because after the outward flight in a former Lufthansa cabin, the flight back was completely different, and there was also a stopover surprise in Canada to fill more gas. How comfortable is this completely different cabin? Which seats should you avoid? How was the service on this flight, and how did I book this long business class flight with just very few miles? Lots of important questions.
But now we're taxiing already for takeoff.
With 1 hour delay, without a lounge in Salt Lake City, and with an announced stopover in Canada, we are boarding a plane with a completely different cabin than last time.
So maybe you've seen my report on Swiss Boeing 777 in their business class on a flight from Bangkok to Zurich. You would see that the seats are very similar to the ones in Swiss. And I'm sitting here on a seat that's called throne seat because you have a single seat with the console left and right of the seat. Not everything was great about that throne seat, even though it sounds nice.
Well, the legs have very little space on this so-called throne seat, and the legroom varies a lot from seat to seat. More about that later. There's a magazine compartment here, then there's this console next to the seat, headphones and socket are above it, and then there's another console on the other side, but no storage space. And that said, we're leaving the hot desert air of Salt Lake City.
And before we starting this report, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There's a lot of really interesting travel and especially airline reports coming up this year from all continents. So subscribe and follow me also on Instagram. You're gonna be up to date with all new information on Instagram as well. So normally I would say now that our flight from Salt Lake City to Frankfurt will last about 9.5 hours and will lead us over the whole North American continent, all the North Atlantic over to Europe through the night. But this flight is different because we don't have only the Edelweiss cabin here on this Eurowings Discover Business Class, but we're also going to have a non-scheduled stop in Halifax, Canada. And the reason is that we're gonna fill some gas. I don't know why that is, because this plane of course can cover the whole distance from Salt Lake City to Frankfurt, but that's the reason we're gonna get some gas in Halifax. So I'm looking forward to that, even though it's gonna be in the middle of the night. Now let's have a look at food and beverage on this flight. Well, one bad thing first of all is you won't have a lounge in Salt Lake City unless you're flying on Delta or another SkyTeam airline. That means if you're a passenger of Eurowings Discover or for example Air Canada, you will not have a lounge. There's also no Priority Pass lounge and also no American Express Centurion lounge. So much for that. But then, once we board it, there's a welcome drink, and that's a selection of champagne, water, and non-alcoholic fruit juice. And then we have the menu, and there's a selection of 3 appetizers, then there's salad, 3 main courses, cheese or dessert, maybe, and dessert, and that's a New York cheesecake. And then before landing, we're gonna have a light breakfast, and we're gonna have a look at that later. The seats on this Edelweiss variation of Eurowings Discover Business Class are very different from each other. There are some really good ones and some not so great ones. I would say the best seat is seat 1A, because that's a throne seat like this one, nice and wide, but also with a lot of space for your feet. I think the second best is 1K. That's not a throne seat, but still you get a lot of space for your feet, and you have just one console, so you don't have two consoles, but that's quite nice. Then you have the throne seats. I mean, that's the single seats with consoles left and right of your seat, that are not in the first row like my seat here. They are nice and wide, but very tight and narrow at the feet, so that's not so great. And then there's of course the double seats, the ones in the aisle, just nice and normal. They have nice legroom, really spacious legroom, and of course when you're directly by the aisle, the arm can fall down. Well, that's how it is. And then there's the double seats on the window side, and if you're at the window, directly by the window, then of course you have a nice view, but you have to jump over your neighbor, and yeah, that's maybe not so great.
And on the right window side, there's single seats only, which are all quite recommendable, but also here you won't have lots of storage space. If you like my flight and travel reports, please give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it right now with the bell notification. It costs you just one click. I'm really happy, and you're making a big difference for the future of this channel.
As an appetizer, I got some yellow beet carpaccio with smoked salmon, and then there's some salad and dressing. That's a raspberry dressing, and with it I got some Riesling white wine, and that's Riesling from 2018, Kalkfelstrocken Reserve from Weingut Knipser. That's the Knipser vineyard in Germany. And another white wine choice here is a 2021 Sauvignon Blanc from South Africa. It's a La Motte. I have no idea if it's expensive or not. I'll check it out. But anyway, it really tastes and smells wonderful of exotic fruits. As a main course, I chose short ribs, and that's short rib Korean style, and I just tried a little, and it's really so good, so tender. The meat is fantastic with this sweet spicy sauce, some roasted potatoes, and with it I'm gonna have a 2015 Médoc. That's Chateau Côte-de-Blaignan Médoc Cru Bourgeois. I'm not only getting dessert, but also cheese, and the cheese platter is really quite nice. It's not big, but it's nice. And we have some grapes and some crackers. And I'm also getting dessert, and that's some New York cheesecake with raspberry coulis. This was by far the best miles redemption of my life, because in the end of 2021 Lufthansa Miles & More had fantastic offers for Eurowings Discover in economy, premium economy, and also in business class, and I booked this flight for 28,000 miles and more miles round trip. So that's incredible. Of course there's a risk, because these miles promotions are not cancelable, so if you cannot go on that flight, you will lose your miles. And in Germany we have a point system called payback, where you can just collect points while shopping, and it was so easy for everybody actually to collect this amount of points to achieve 28,000 miles to book this kind of flight. So that was really a fantastic thing, and I'm so happy that I did it.
One thing happened on this flight that was a real no-go. Somebody had obviously thrown up on the seat in front of me on the previous flight. That seat looked a bit dirty but wasn't blocked, so I sat down for a few photos until I realized I didn't raise my voice, but my clothes stank until I washed them. Good that I had my pajamas from Emirates with me for the rest of the flight, but until home I had nothing else to wear. But now it's time to lie down a bit because it's only 4 hours to Halifax, and this seat is just unbearably tight on the legs. It's really insane. Whoever sits on a throne has no easy life, and here these words get a new meaning. Who has ever had nice dreams here? Luckily there's a solution. Seat 1K is still available, so buy 3A and hello from 1K.
And the throne seat in rows 3 and 5 is so narrow for the legs that I just had to switch. And I'm just lucky that 1K, this seat over here, is empty, so I could just move over here, because really the throne seats over there, row 3 and 5, that's 3A and 5A, is so narrow that you feel like your legs are attached to each other and you just cannot move. You basically cannot move at all. Anyway, here there's so much space for the feet in row 1 or on seat 1K. That's really fantastic. Also, the staff here on board is really very welcoming, very friendly. I already had the impression when I came from Frankfurt over to Salt Lake City. That flight was also very nice when it came to the interaction with staff. Very friendly service, very good service. They always ask proactively if you would like to have more or something else, and if you wish something else. And there's also nice little chats in between. Very friendly, very normal in a good way. And yeah, I'm just feeling really welcome here on board. So they do that really very well.
Shortly before our refueling stop in Halifax, let's check out the lavatories. Surprisingly, at least one bathroom in the former Edelweiss plane is actually larger than the mini toilets of the Lufthansa A330 1 week before. Other than that, everything is the same. Quite simple, but with hand cream from Occitan. And after 1 hour of refueling our plane in Halifax, AV geeks like me had the luxury of another takeoff. It's still 6 hours to Frankfurt, and with the new seat I have a good feeling about getting some sleep. But let's first take a look at the entertainment system here. The flight show is only semi-interactive, but still pretty nice. Like in the Lufthansa version, the monitors here are rather small. On top they're immovable and the image blurs if you don't look directly at it. If you sit, it's okay. Once you lie down, you only see parts of the movie, which is so annoying. The headphones are noise cancelling, but not very big, which can also have advantages. The selection of movies and series is very limited and even smaller than at mothership Lufthansa, but it's okay for a few hours. If you were a frequent flyer here, you'd get bored pretty soon. The selection of music is also not sufficient, and what really annoys me is the almost complete absence of classical music. Even though not everybody wants to listen to it, it should still be offered. So here's at least 20 seconds of self-sung music. After all, the channel is called Travel, Sing, Fly. I could really sleep here very well, and I certainly dreamed of my trip of the southwest of the United States in 9 days. Here's a few impressions in 40 seconds.
Good morning. Well, I just wanted to watch some TV, but it just slept away right away, and that doesn't happen very often that I sleep on a plane. So it must be quite comfortable, I guess. It's not so easy to sleep here on your back. If you want to sleep on your back, you can have a problem because it's very, very tight for that. But once you sleep on the side, it's actually quite easy, quite nice, and enough space. And now we're having still 1 hour before landing, and I just got woken up with some breakfast. There's croissant, scrambled eggs, yogurt and muesli, some cheese and ham and espresso and orange juice. Oh. Now after a second double espresso, I changed back into my real clothes and also back onto my first seat. Now, how was the flight experience on Eurowings Discover Business Class in this seat configuration? Well, it all depends, I would say, on where you're actually sitting, because the seats are very different from each other. There's one very good seat, that's 1A. Then there's two not so good seats, that's 3A and 5A, that are really very tight if you want to sleep, unless you're a really very small person. And then the other seats are in between. If you want to sleep on your back, it's going to be a little problematic because it's kind of tight or narrow, but if you sleep on your side, it's going to be quite a good seat. Food and beverage were on a good level, I would say. The staff was very welcoming, very friendly. They were proactive. They asked you all the time if you would like to have something more, and also you never had the feeling that they just disappeared forever. So that was quite good. So for an European airline, this is quite a good business class product on long haul flights. Of course, when you compare it to Asian and Middle Eastern carriers, it's another story again. But for European airlines, this is a good long haul business class, even though it's just a holiday airline of Lufthansa. So my dear ones, we arrived in Frankfurt. I hope you really enjoyed this flight report about Eurowings Discover Business Class. And if you did, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel right now. There's a lot of really interesting travel and especially airline reports waiting for you from all continents this year. So stay tuned, and also on Instagram, and see you again very soon here on Travel, Sing, Fly.